Everyone, how's it going? Today, we're going to bring on a special guest. He's my buddy John. He used to come on my other program back in the day for my Gold and Silver channel, and he used to interview me as well. And we both have a passion in sports and sports cards. And his name is John. Hey, John, how's it going?
Hey, it's pretty good. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, yeah, thanks for coming on. So, we both have been following the sports card market for at least a year. I was following it for about 2 to 3 years. And I noticed, and you also have noticed, that the card prices just started going crazy. Last year with Michael Jordan documentary, these cards have just been exploding in price value. So, why do you, first of all, think these card values are going up like crazy?
I I would say it's mainly because of the Federal Reserve. What people don't realize is that the Fed has printed in 2020 alone $3 trillion worth of new monetary units. That money is eventually going to find a lot of places, and it's not just like sports. Like we are talking about gold. The last Over the last 2 years, it went up from around 1,200 to well, for now it's like 1,720. But at one point, it made new all-time highs. Bitcoin's gone up, and it was 20% of all monetary units created in the history of the United States. So that money, collectibles is one place it's going to go. I would say that's the main culprit, among other things. When the stimulus checks, millennials, they're looking for places to invest their money, and they know of sports cards.
Yep, I totally agree. When we were young kids, we used to collect these cards, and when things got crazy last year, we tried to divert our attention and just, go back to what we did as kids to make us happy. That being said, in terms of sports card collecting, we like to use our analytic tools that we use to invest in the stock market. And we don't like going with the crowd. Like the crowd was buying all of these Luka Doncic cards in the NBA, Giannis cards, and whatnot. But last year you told me about hockey cards and how not many people follow this sport. So, first of all, why do you like hockey, and why do you suggest investing in other sports besides, basketball? People our age, millennials, they like throwing tens of thousands of dollars in these cards, like Luca, like I said, and in my opinion, those are going to be the hardest to crash in the next few years.
Yeah, I would say the main reason I thought about it is, like, as you know from my investing policy, is I like to provide contrarian opinions. I like to go where no one else is going. And basketball and baseball cards were the cards everyone collected. And I remember you told me in the 1980s through 2000s, early 2000s, that the supply was really high because they made so many of the cards, baseball in particular, and basketball, in which I had a ton of basketball and baseball cards. And that's, what we did. And so I've gotten into hockey, being, where I live in the DC area. Uh, it's basically, if you don't live there, it's basically a hockey town now. It's the most popular, and it's mainly because the Caps won the cup, and they were the first one since '93 of any DC team. And not many people where I live, followed hockey when in the '80s and '90s. Some areas may be different, like the Kings had Wayne Gretzky, and so he brought hockey to LA, and of course Canada. A lot of people probably followed, but I pictured, I was like, if not many people were following hockey, then the supply must be very low. And as we do when we do stock market investing, is, as you know from my background, I was a junior mining speculator. I still am. But first thing I look at is, if I'm going to invest in a junior miner, is, what's its share structure, and is it dilutive? Are more shares coming on to market to raise money? And in sports cards, it's a little different because if you're looking at like a 1999 card, not more cards made in 1999 are coming on, but I look at the supply in comparison to other years. So I figured hockey would have a smaller supply and be a smaller market. And so when that sports card money's coming into hockey, the value would push up would be much higher. And that's where our conversation began. And then you took it to a whole new level, getting other sports like Floyd and Simone Biles. But that, it's the same thing as if any of you are on his gold and silver channel listening to this, same thing as investing in a stock. Look at the share structure. In this case, look at the supply.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. And I have this card that we both bought last year. I don't know if people can see, but it's the 2005 Upper Deck Ovechkin #2. It's a PSA 10. I didn't know who the hell Ovechkin was to begin with. I do follow sports, but I do follow the Chicago teams. I have my Blackhawks jersey on right now. But there was barely any population size for this Ovechkin card. And we did some research, we did some digging. I look at the PSA pop reports, and like you said, there wasn't that much supply. Maybe 200 some cards graded, and we bought it for what, $100. I felt we overpaid by $20 at the last, or you compare the comps at the time. And now, if you're to sell this card, you could at least get $350 to $450. That's where the sales are going. So, that's how we do it. And you believe that Ovechkin still has growth, right?
Oh yeah, in terms of a player, and that's the other thing is like going to junior minor. I don't look at just stair stretcher. You look at the asset. In this case, it would be the athlete. Ovechkin is he has top 10 in career goals now. He has about 712 career goals, which is I think 7th all time. So he's a great goal scorer. He has the most Richard Rocket trophies, which is led the league in goals for a season. He's done that more than anyone in the history of the NHL. But here's where his growth comes in. If you're not familiar with hockey, he's on pace to get 800 goals. He said he wants to play 5 more years. Last year he had around 47 goals, and that was a COVID season, which he tied with David Pastrnak for the most goals scored. So if he can do that for 5 more years, he'll break Gretzky's record. Or not Gretzky's, 800 easy. Gretzky's, I don't know how easy, because Gretzky has like 894. But he also can break Gretzky's record, and people are guesstimating that he will break Gretzky's goals scored record. So 800 goals is the first growth page. If he gets past 800, that could create a speculative mania. 2 is if he breaks Gretzky's, if he gets about 45 goals a season, which if you times that by 5, 40, 80, 120, 40, 80, 120, 160, 200, and then so that would be, well, that's just if he got 40 goals a season, not 45 over the next 5 years, or if he plays 6. He breaks Gretzky's 894 record. I don't know if it's 894 exactly. I just know it's in that ballpark. So he could. It's very possible that he could break. He's still, his slap shot's over 100 miles an hour. So he has a very, very fast slap shot, and he's a great shooter. And that's, one of the things that doesn't, age that ages well. So those are the first 2 things. And the other growth phase, he'll be a Hall of Famer. So when they get in the Hall of Fame, and then the other one is the Caps have a very stock team. John Carlson was a Johnny Norris contender, which is best defenseman. They have a lot of good defensemen. I'm not going to name them all because I don't want to do a deep dive into the Caps roster. I don't think your audience would be that listed. But then they have, in terms of their forwards, TJ Oshie is also an all-star. Nick Backstrom, he's 2 away from 700 assists. He's a really good center. He's led the league in assists 1 year. He's always up there. And Kuznetsov, Evgeny Kuznetsov, is a very good player. The year the Caps won the Stanley Cup, he actually led the team in points in the playoffs. Ovechkin was second. So he's inconsistent, and he can sometimes fall off. But he's still when he's on, he's on. And their goalies have been playing pretty well, even though they lost Holtby, who was an all-star. But they're a good team. So if he wins a championship, which is very possible, that's also a catalyst for growth. So there's 4 main reasons that could push up his card in a speculative mania. Like I just remember me and you talking about it when Scherzer, the Nats won the World Series. Scherzer's card started going on fire. So
Yeah.
those are 4 reasons right there that could give you really great selling opportunities where it can get fired. In my opinion, I'm not telling anyone to buy this card or giving them investment advice. Just my opinion. This is a podcast show, not a financial advisor, just to make sure.
Oh yeah, we're not pumping and dumping. So just as a FYI. But speaking of Scherzer, actually, my wife and I are selling this one Scherzer card because it just went up almost 3.5-fold over the past few years. I do have some other Scherzer cards, just as a disclosure. But what other cards are you looking at in terms of supply, limit of supply? I mean, you looked at Ovechkin, and we found out that there aren't that many of his cards graded of that upper deck version. So what are you looking at right now? And
one I just bought, and I'll disclose, I plan on holding this for a long time. First of all, my philosophy is that I would never buy something, even if I wanted to flip it. I would never hold it. I would never buy something I'm not willing to hold for a while. And the main reason is I'll just use the Facebook IPO. Do you remember when it IPO'd and all these memes came out? Like, you want to be a millionaire, buy $1 billion worth of Facebook?
I don't remember the memes. I do remember that stock may have crashed to $20 at one point.
Yeah, the IPO.
It crashed, but then it just started going on fire, from my memory.
Yeah, so like if someone bought the Facebook at the IPO at around 35 or 38 bucks, hoping to flip it, they would have been They would have been burned twice. They would have been burned on the original IPO and then when they sold it. So that's one example of just, don't buy something that you're not willing to hold. So the one I got right here is Katie Ledecky, and this is a Sports Illustrated kids card, and this is what I got. And the main reason I got her, one, it's super cheap, so I'm going to barely lose anything if I lose any money. There's hardly anything graded. In fact, this isn't even graded. I can get this graded if it goes up. And I was going to say, her is a ton of growth. If you don't know who she is, she's already being called a female Michael Phelps in swimming. She has 15 individual gold medals. She's 23 years old. And if you look at it at this age with already 15, she has about this Summer Olympics. And then at 27 and 31, so she probably has 3 more Summer Olympics to get a lot more gold medals to get a very valuable, to add a lot of value. So I look for this, and I looked at, it's like when I did the Ovechkin card, I looked for growth. I wanted not just great assets and people who are going to probably be Hall of Famers. She has I forget how many world records. I think it's 18. I looked it up, but I'm just
That's crazy.
18 world records already at 23. So, and there's a lot of growth. Like Simone Biles is also 23, but the average gymnast is 18, and that's why I was more interested in her. Simone Biles, you probably can't go wrong with it. She's already Hall of Famer, and from what I hear, the GOAT. But I mean, Katie Ledecky just has a lot more growth than Simone Biles, from my understanding. I'm not an expert in swimming or gymnastics, so don't take that to the bank or anything. It's just what I looked at, in my opinion. And trust me, I'm not an expert at those sports.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago we were just talking about sports cars in general again, and you actually recommended me Katie Ledecky. So then I just started buying up a bunch of these cards. I still haven't received them. I know you also ordered some after I told you. I think I ordered maybe 35. I don't remember off the top of my head, maybe more. But in terms of Simone Biles, yeah, I think Simone Biles is a GOAT no matter how she performs this Olympics. She's won so many gold medals. And on top of it, this is going to be most likely her last Olympics. And just looking at pattern recognition, whenever some athlete retires, their card tends to spike. Just like those individuals who watch MMA, they saw some of Khabib's cards from 2013 or in 2012, maybe in a few $100, and ungraded cards sold for 16, not 1600 bucks, but $600 for the blue refractor of 2013. The 2012 card sold for about 2 grand last time I saw. I should have bought it, but it's in really crappy condition. So yes, Simone Biles doesn't have growth, but I wonder how this hot money that is just bidding these cards like crazy right now is going to bid up the cards once she announces she's going to retire. And a lot of people are not focusing on female sports, and they're focusing right now on the basketball season. So eventually there's going to be rotation, just like hedge funds, as you know, John. They keep on rotating out of different assets once they think it's overinflated and overvalued. And
Yeah.
speaking of overinflated and overvalued valuations, we are in both agreement that this craze in the card market that we both like, we both invest in, is going to have a hard landing in the next few years. Why do you believe that?
I would say mainly because, like right now, long-term yields are going up in the market, and if you aren't familiar, you can just look at gold's price action. That's always the first to get affected by it. That one of the reasons everyone believes that, even still, that we're going to have a strong economy, or this bad economy right now is an anomaly. But I think interest rates will rise, and if you just look at a lot of bubbles, one example is in the junior mining industry during the gold bubble popping in 2011 and even the late 70s. People would have industries with the name gold in them, and their stocks would go through the roof. And it wasn't even a gold mining company. I forget the exact names, but I still remember studying those, even when I was during my days at Wall Street for Main Street. And if you look at it here, these are just classic bubble behaviors. One, fractional cards, in fraction of it. Of course, I always believe, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Uh, Even, stocks that you get, the brokerage house might rent out your stocks. So if you don't hold it, don't own it. And second of all, is this Sam Vincent card caught my eye. And Sam Vincent averaged about, I remember looking that up before we went on, it was about 7 or 8 points a game. And he has a card going for over $400. And it's because Michael Jordan is in it. I think it's him like dunking on Jordan or getting a rebound or soaring over Jordan. So everyone's buying it, but to me that is bubble behavior. But as I always say, there's a famous quote by John Maynard Keynes: "Bubbles can go on a lot longer." Or his quote is, "The market can act irrational longer than you can remain solvent." So, how long this bubble goes, I don't know. But I think over the long term, I still think this will be a strong market, just as long as this cycle of easy money continues, which I think it will for a long time. Meaning, I don't know definition of long, but for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, just adding on to that, I've noticed the last three stock market crashes, there have been times where the Federal Reserve short term rate, the Fed funds rate, once it goes above the 10-year rate, that's when you start to see acid bubbles pop. And right now, the short-term rate is pretty much zero, and the long-term rate that you're talking about, that everyone looks at, is the 10-year. It's about maybe what 1.3. So, in order for this thing to totally crash, the Federal Reserve needs to raise the short-term rates. And by that time, when they do that, in my opinion, next 2 years, 2 to 3 years, the card market is going to have a huge correction, and some of these prices will definitely collapse. And at that time, PSA is going to also be sending in all these cards that are on backload back to their customers. So there's going to be a lot of supply hitting the market, and not only that, the Fed is going to crash this market, like they're going to crash the stock market.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be fun times for those people throwing tens of thousands of dollars and that borrowed on credit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's another reason I'm selective. Like, this card, as you know, we didn't pay much for, and this is also has a lot of growth. So after this crash, there's still room for growth. Unless she gets injured or something. We don't know, but that's why I always say also great assets. Like, she'll probably still be a Hall of Famer, and so you still have a Hall of Famer if the growth doesn't materialize. Like Ovechkin, if he doesn't get any of those four things I said, he's still a Hall of Famer. Like, when he retires, well, he'll eventually retire, willingly or unwillingly. Every athlete,
Like
stops
Brady,
playing.
just like Brady. Brady is going to eventually retire. He's not going to play till he's 50.
Yeah. So yeah, whether willingly or unwillingly, all athletes, quit. I've never seen someone play forever.
Yep. Even Gordie Howe retired.
Yeah.
But anyways, you have any last thoughts, John?
Yeah, I was gonna say, in terms of like when this market crashes and comebacks, I have some people on my radar right now. I guess I can just say who they are. Two of them are Connor McDavid. He's a hockey player, and he is about 24. He's already won the MVP once, and he's already won I think it's Heartland Trophy for the most points twice in the league. He's considered the best center in the league, and I don't know what will happen, but by the time it crashes, but he wins a cup, he has more trophies, he could become like another Gretzky, and I expect Gretzky played till he was 38, so I expect during this crash to get his card for a nice cheap price. Another one I like is being partial. Where I'm from is Juan Soto. Now, for both of these people, Soto and Connor McDavid, if they get injured, their careers, I don't over, and who knows, their cars might not be worth much. So there's always that. Be mindful and looking at an athlete. But the main reason I like Soto is last year at the age of 20, he was, we were looking this up, he was like 22nd in the league in slugging percentage. And this year, even though it was a COVID shortened season, he led the league in on base percentage. And he also led the league on slugging percentage. And he's only 21 years old. And I expect him to really continue to do well over the next couple of years. The main reason is Davey Martinez. The one thing he's done well with his sluggers is he's set up the batting order. As you know, you're a Cubs fan, about protecting your batters, meaning, in my opinion, it's setting up a lineup, forcing, opposing pitchers to have to pitch your best batters. And the year they won the World Series, he had Soto behind Rendon. So if you walked Rendon, and Adam Eaton and Trey Turner were both guys who got on base really well, great base runners, and if you walked Rendon with one of them on, you sort of either had to pitch to Soto, or you're basically walking the bases loaded with one out or no out. And then you're limited to what you're pitched to the fifth guy, because one wild pitch could cost you a run. The next year we lost Rendon, and a lot of production dropped. So he moved Soto from number 4 to number 2, and Trey Turner was in front of him. So if Trey Turner got on base, you would sort of have to pitch to Soto. Otherwise, you have two on. Trey Turner's in scoring position. One wild pitch could lead him to third, or a single would just drive him home. So he basically put other teams in a position where they would either walk him, which would increase his on base percentage, or they had to pitch to him. And that's why he had great slugging position. So he's in a good position with Davey Martinez knows how to get the best out of his batters. So those are two guys I'm just taking McDavid and Soto. Soto I can do more in depth because I follow the Nats very closely. So the Oilers I don't know much about, other than Connor McDavid's unbelievable talent.
Yeah. Speaking of these players and cards, so I haven't done a full dive on these guys, but for Soto and all these baseball cards, there appears to be a high population count, and more cards will be graded once PSA gets its act together and BGS. And so I think we're going to have to be selective when it comes to Soto. I think we're going to have to do more research on it, even though I agree with you that Soto will most likely be a good investment as long as he doesn't get injured. And then the last part, I think that's a really good idea for Connor McDavid. And I want to probably invest in some of his unopened box. I think it's his upper deck cards that are the ones that are on fire. And, if you look at the 1986 Fleer unopened boxes, those are going for crazy prices. So if this guy is the next, Gretzky, and I want to get maybe some unopened boxes when this crash happens. And, I think that will still be a good play, just as long as guys don't get injured.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that with baseball cards, but yeah, hockey's the sport I sort of go to the most because I don't think it has many. It's one of the big four, and I don't think it has many collectors, and a lot of the fans are Canadian, so I don't even know if they do cards in Canada. They might. I just don't know.
Yeah, Canadians are huge on cards. That's where I got some of my hockey. Yeah, they're crazy about hockey cards.
All right, so they collect cards. So.
Anyways, before I go, any place you share your work, or you've stopped doing that?
Yeah, I've stopped doing that for now. I might write up more about stocks and seeking alpha, I guess, if you look at me. But yeah, I haven't done too much. So I guess the best way is, if you want to hear more from me, follow this channel and ask to have me on. I guess that's the best way.
Yeah, for sure.
Hit the like and subscribe.
Exactly. You're definitely going to be a good guest in the future if you choose to come on.
Yeah, follow this channel. That's the best way. If you want to hear more, you get to hear. It's a double. Get to hear Rahul most of the time, and once in a while, Al Papa.
Yep, for sure. All right, man. Thanks for coming on, John.
No problem. Thanks for having me.